The Reserve Bank cut its cash rate to 3% today. It equals the lowest rate since the peak of the global financial crisis. And to put it in perspective, the only other time the cash rate has been this low was in the credit crunch of 1961. It's a great Christmas present for borrowers and bad news for self-funded retirees. It's also generally recognised as a sign the Reserve Bank sees trouble ahead for the Australian economy. But one man celebrating tonight is the Treasurer, and I spoke to him a short time ago from Canberra. Wayne Swan, welcome.
Good evening.
Well, Treasurer, the last time the cash rate hit 3%, you described it as an emergency low. So what is the emergency this time?
Well, I think anybody using the term emergency to describe our current circumstances or interest rate settings is simply someone who isn't credible and can't be taken seriously. The fact is that back in 2008, 2009, the global economy fell off a cliff. Global growth was contracting. I mean, global growth at the moment is a little below trend. So to use those sort of descriptions, I think, is really part of a scare campaign being run by Tony Abbott and I think sections of the media, and it doesn't reflect the underlying condition of the Australian economy, which is one which has got low unemployment, a growth rate which is barely equal by any other developed economy, constrained inflation, and of course a very big investment pipeline.
In fact, Treasurer, I'm using the terminology that you used in November 2009 when you said rates could not stay at 50-year emergency lows forever because the economy is recovering. So if rates climbing from 3% is a sign of recovery, by that logic, rates falling to 3% must be a sign for concern.
Not at all. I mean, I was there. I remember these circumstances vividly. I mean, we were facing a catastrophic situation in the global economy. We're not facing that at the moment. There are certainly very significant global headwinds, and we are still living with the aftershocks of the global financial crisis. But here in Australia, unlike other developed economies, our economy is resilient. We've got low unemployment. We've got growth around trend. We've got contained inflation. We've got a strong investment pipeline. We've got strong public finances. I mean, one of the reasons why the Reserve Bank is in the position to deploy monetary policy like it is doing at the moment is precisely because of our fiscal policy and precisely because inflation is contained.
But Treasurer, that's not all of it, is it? The Reserve Bank is concerned that the Australian economy is softening and it's loosening monetary policy.
Well, first of all, could I just quote from the statement today where the Governor says this: growth has been running close to trend over the past year, led by very large increases in capital spending. But it is true, Chris, to make the point that growth in the first half of this year was stronger than trend, and I wouldn't be surprised, we've got the national accounts tomorrow, to see that growth has come off a bit, and there's no doubt that we are facing headwinds from a high Australian dollar and from what you would call a prudent consumer, both in terms of spending and in terms of borrowing. So the Reserve Bank deals with all of those matters in its statement today, but they certainly do not in any way support a description of these rate levels as emergency levels. Nobody who is in touch with the economy does.
So what's the plan, Treasurer, to keep the economy ticking over as the mining investment boom comes off?
Well, certainly what the Reserve Bank is saying is that they are deploying monetary policy to encourage sectors out there, particularly outside of the resources sector. That's what monetary policy is for. But it is true, Chris, that there are headwinds in the economy, and not everybody out there, either in business or who is working for a living, is on easy street. But unlike many other developed economies, we've got a set of fundamentals which I think should give the Australian people some confidence.
Well, Treasurer, just looking at one part of the economy, Ernst & Young says that 35% of 2012 Christmas shopping will be done online, and only 57% of Australians prefer local sites. So isn't it time to end the $1,000 GST threshold for offshore purchases?
No, first of all, Chris, so you've got to understand what the easing of monetary policy means. I mean, if you've got a $300,000 mortgage, you're paying something like $5,000 a year less than you were paying back at the end of 2007. That's about $100 a week. So the easing of monetary policy policy does have a very significant impact on the capacity of consumers to spend. And when it comes to the retail sector, that's a factor as well. But as I said before, we've got a prudent consumer and we've got prudent borrowers. So there's a big difference there. When it comes to the question you've asked about the report from the Low Parcel Task Force, we are dealing with that in the way in which has been recommended to us by experts. We do see there is a case for reform, but the volume of parcels coming into this country means that it can't be acted on immediately. It is simply not possible. This $1,000 limit was put in place by Peter Costello many years ago, and it is one that does need some action, and we are going about it in a methodical way.
Now, Labor Senator John Faulkner gave a speech on integrity today, and he had some very sharp words about the Labor Party. Here's part of what he had to say.
To have integrity, politicians must have the courage to defend their political principles and the strength to uphold their moral convictions. Fail either of these two challenges and political integrity is an impossibility. It's time to publicly acknowledge that there have been some in our party's ranks with neither political principles to defend nor moral convictions to uphold.
Well, Treasurer, is that the way that you would characterise some in your party?
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with the contents of what Senator Faulkner has had to say, and those individuals should be dealt with if the findings are there. But can I just make this point? One of the things that I'm proudest most of was not only the response of our government during the global financial crisis against very significant opposition when it came to deploying Labor values, but also what we've done in recent times when it comes to carbon pricing. A lot of courage and a lot of commitment to values has characterised this Labor government. But I would make the point that I'm the Treasurer. I've been very busy with a rate cut today. We've got the national accounts coming out tomorrow. I'll take the time after that to have a close read of what Senator Faulkner has had to say.
But as you say, you've been a loyal servant of the Labor Party for a long time. The way you frame your budgets reflects Labor values. Surely you've got an opinion on whether or not you would characterise some people in your party as lacking integrity.
Well, if the evidence that we're seeing is proven in Sydney, then I absolutely agree with the comments that Senator Faulkner has made.
And you think there's a lot more room for reform in the party?
I've always been of the view that the party has to be continuously reformed to reflect modern standards. And I've always had some views on party reform, and I've expressed them publicly from time to time. But my focus at the moment is the economy, and that's the reform that matters most to Australians.
Wayne Swan, thank you.
Thank you.